Importance of realistic pricing your home. Does it matter? And that's the big question, Richard, isn't it? The FIFE property market, our discussion, the importance of realistic pricing if you want to sell.
Yeah, that's the important thing. I think if you really want to sell your property, you need to be realistic about the pricing of the property and getting that right price point to attract the right buyers. And we've spoke about it previously about, do you know what, a lot of agents still do this, like just before if it's, say it's 200,000, and they'll do 100,095 or 99 or whatever, and it's like
99995.
yeah. And that's silly because they don't understand then the price bracket and where the search engine then takes people to when they're searching for property in certain price brackets and things as well. So that's something to think about.
Yeah. So what we're going to cover today really is give you a bit of an insight into the UK property landscape. You know, it's experienced a significant shift. I think we've all seen that over the last couple of years. In October 2021, for instance, there was 424,809 properties. So basically 425,000 properties for sale throughout the UK. That now stands at 664,780. That's a 56.5% rise. That's quite significant, isn't it?
Jump. Yeah, definitely.
Quite significant. So looking at the number of properties for sale in the UK, comparison to October 21, 111,000 properties were sold subject to contract. But in October of 2023, that figure has dropped to 88,737 properties sold subject to contract. That's a reduction of 20%. So it's definitely worth delving into this and getting an understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah, and that maybe makes you think to yourself, like, then the drop in property sales could have just been an October of this year thing. So let's obviously look at the year-to-date figures for both, like you said, 2021 and then this year, 2023.
I think that's why it's important, because also, you know, we're talking here UK-wide, and as we go through the discussions today, we'll do that more regionally within FIFE and give you a bit of an insight to that as well. But I think if we look at the number of property sales, the number of properties that sold year-to-date at the end of October 2021 was basically just short of 1.3 million. Fast forward to October 2023, and that number of property sales reached 933,000. So it's a bit of a difference. That's a reduction of 25.44%. But what does that really mean? Well, with the number of properties coming to the market for the sales in the EU increasing, contrasted against the decline of the house sales. So one's increasing, one's going down. So it's kind of two negatives working in a separate way. It's easy to find ourselves in a peculiar environment regarding the property market, and what does that really mean for you as an individual? So before we discuss that, we want to look at the picture closer to home. So that gives you a bit of an insight and see if the same occurrings that we're seeing that are happening locally are what we're seeing nationally. So it's good to give you a bit of a feel for that.
That is really important, and we talk a lot of the stats and things we go through on shows and things that they are the UK, and that is, it's good to look at the whole country as a whole, but I think FIFE's got such a wee micro market of its own as well, and it's good to break it down for our market in particular itself, because it is sometimes starkly different from the rest of the country. Although the stats that pulled in are good comparisons, but it does include cities and things like that as well, whereas we're a bit different from that as well. So it's good to get a breakdown. So in our postcodes and things as well, which you're about to do. So
definitely, and I think that's really helpful for people as well if they're considering whether or not they want to sell, or in fact, actually, if you're on the market and you're starting to be concerned, what does it really mean? And you know, gives you insight as to, well, are you being realistic with what you're waiting for, and is it being realistically priced? So good for you to have a good insight as to what that means and how it impacts yourself. So what does that mean in regards to where we are with property? So if we look at postcodes, as you say, Richard, it's good to get a feel for it. But if the FIFE starts, and we're talking about KY1 to KY16 is what really kind of covers FIFE predominantly.
Yeah.
If we look at them in year on years, so October 21, there were on average 1,354 properties for sale in the Fife area. In October 22, that number increased to an average of 1,850. And then if we go to October 2023, it's just short of 2,100.
So,
for sale in Fife.
Right, so that would mean that just say about 55% more Fife homes are on the market today than there was 2 years ago.
Correct.
Roughly, I think that's just, it should be about right. So then what about property sales then?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's all very well saying what is available, but what is actually selling is what matters, because it's the transactions that we always kind of judge. Is it a healthy market? And we base that on the transactions, don't we? So if we look at property sales, in October of 21, there were 621 properties sold in Fife. In October 22, it was 514. And in October 23, it was 541.
So then that would mean, so we're then round about 13% fewer homes sold in October this year than there was 2 years ago in 2021.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. And that actually does tie in when we look at what we do in the Sunday update, doesn't it? Because our Sunday update generally is sitting around about 85%. So we look at what's coming to market versus what we're selling, it's sitting around anything between 80 and 90%. And we would say anything really above 80 is still a healthy market.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So then looking at those stats and things, then what does that all mean for Fife homeowners in particular then?
Well, for Fife homeowners in particular, I think what it'd be good to do is actually look at, okay, they're the numbers that are coming to market, they're the numbers that have sold, but what does it mean in your area? Because Fife, again, as you said earlier on, Richard, it is a little bit of a cosmo, and we've got little microclimates within each point of Fife, haven't we?
So
it definitely changes. So out of those ones in October, so when we look at October 21, 22 and 23, we can see that there's kind of an increase and decrease in certain areas. But if we have a look at where it is in actual impacts, if we go to East Neuk, for instance, as a starting point, when we look at the number of properties coming for sale, so if we go back to East Neuk stats and basically look at, well, what did come from market? In October 21, there was 87 properties for sale in the East Neuk. In October 22, it was 96. And then in October 23, it was 109.
Yeah.
So where we saw on average 54.7% more homes on the market today than 2 years ago in Fife, as far as the East Neuk is concerned, it was 25.3%.
Right.
Now, the 25% sounds a lot, but actually when you're looking at 87 houses in 21 versus 109 houses, it actually isn't that many.
No.
Because you're working in transactions rather than percentages, and percentages can skew it. So I think it's important to look at the numbers as well. So that's 25.3% more East Neuk homes on the market today than there were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Versus Fife-wide at 54. So it's a big difference when you look at it like that. If we look at then what was sold in the East Neuk, for instance, so again, we said in Fife, 621. Well, in the East Neuk, there was 39 sold in October of 21, 24 sold in October of 22, and in October of 23, it was 19. So that's 51.3% fewer East Neuk homes sold in 23 than they did in October 21. But again, realistically, when you look at the actual unit numbers of transactions, 39, 24, 19.
Yeah.
So whilst that sounds like a big jump, actually in the reality, it's not a massive impact. That's what we're seeing in the area. Do you want to cover off some of the stats for some of the other areas of Fife, Richard, just to give some people an idea?
I've not got them in front of me, so you could do it.
No, that's fine. So that was East Neuk. If you look at St Andrews, 21, they had 103 properties were up for sale. In 22, it was 167. In 23, it was 191. So that was 85.4% more St Andrews homes on the market today than 2 years ago.
Yeah,
now, that's quite a bit different.
Which is what you would expect for that area anyway.
Yeah, you would expect that because you've got a higher price point as well and a lot of changes there. But again, 103 versus 191, that is, you can see that's kind of doubling up almost, where you didn't see that in the East Neuk. So again, if we look at what then property sales that took place in St Andrews, in October 21, it was 35 sold.
Yeah.
In 22, it was 30. And in 23, it was 31. So again, that's 11.4% fewer St Andrews homes sold in 2023 versus 2021. But again, when you look at that, that's 31 versus 35. So then you suddenly think, well, hang on, what does that really look like for me? Doesn't really impact that much. And then we're going to Glenoffice. The actual average properties for sale in the area in 21 was 135. In 22, it was 176. In 23, 230. 70% increase. Now those numbers are starting to make a difference because again, versus 21 and 23, what we're seeing in Glenoffice is actually double.
Yeah, and that is what I would expect, and because I know there's been a lot of activity in Glenoffice, in the Glenoffice area.
Yeah,
so
there very much has been.
That makes sense to me, and probably yourself as well, because we know what's been going on in these certain areas. What about the Leavenmouth area, like KY8 and?
Yeah, so Leavenmouth area. If we look at Leven, we are in October 21, it was 120 houses. In October 22, it was 166. And then in October 23, it was 172. And again, that's what we're seeing. So we've definitely seen an increase there. So that's 43.3% increase in the Leavenmouth area. Properties available on the market today than there were 2 years ago. When we look at the sales as well, actually, quite healthy. So October 21 was 56 properties sold. In 22, it was 52. In 23, it was 47. So 16.1%. So that's one of the lower ones in the park, but actually slightly higher than the average. But again, when it's 56, 52, 47, you're only talking one or two to shift that. So,
and although it's lower than the other areas like St Andrews, East Neuk and Glenoffice, it is still higher than the average. So
correct. So actually overall in those areas performing quite well with that.
So I would be fair to say that the surge in available properties leads to increased choice for prospective buyers and things, which is a welcome relief from 2 years ago, when there was a limited choice of from home buyers, for home buyers, should I say. Yet, in the flip side, the increased competition among sellers is making it harder to stand out in a crowded market.
Very much so, and we are hearing and seeing that every day, to be honest with you, Richard. When we're out and about, you've seen that a lot, and you're right to compare that with kind of 22 versus 21, because post-COVID, nobody expected what happened to happen. And absolutely, buyers basically were snapping up anything as soon as it moved, whereas now, actually, as a buyer, you've got a little bit more of a choice. So you can maybe, rather than have your flexibilities of saying, well, actually, it doesn't tick all of my boxes, but it ticks 90% of them, so that's the one I'll go for. Now people are actually shopping around a little bit more. So it's taken a little bit longer. Where things were selling in between 2 and 3 weeks, it's taken maybe between 6 and 8, depending on the property.
Things are still moving, but it's just taking that a wee bit longer. But you're right on the backside of lockdown and the pandemic, and I mean, what people or what the media kind of portrayed as what people were entering into, it was like it was scary, and then it just went the completely opposite direction, and we had just this booming market, and that's not what was portrayed in the media and what we were heading into. So that was an interesting time.
But it's actually still a healthy market. We talk about a healthy market, anything of 80% plus.
Yes.
And at the moment, 81.9% of FIFE homers are still successfully selling and moving home. And that's just in the last 12 months. So it's still a strong market.
Yeah, we see that. And we see that obviously on a day-to-day, weekly basis. We still see that obviously transactions and things are moving, albeit maybe just a little bit slower than they did previously. And that's interesting when you compare that with the national average, which is just shy of 55%, as we said.
Yeah.
So we're a lot higher. FIFE's a lot higher than that national average.
And actually, when you really understand what that national average is telling you as well, if you think that that's just over 50%, that's basically saying 1 in 2 houses are not selling.
Yeah.
Whereas we're absolutely not seeing that. It's sitting at 81.9% in FIFE at the moment.
Yeah.
And actually 2 years ago, that number for FIFE was sitting at 8 to 9.8%. So actually, not much of a reduction.
It's not that bad.
7%.
Yeah.
And certainly when you hear people speaking, oh, now's no good time to sell. Oh, no, I'm going to wait till spring. Oh, there's all these reasons. I think the thing I would always say is if your circumstances mean that you need to move, then go now.
The time is now. I think that I was like, if people are thinking about selling, it's like, oh, I'll wait till spring, or I'll wait till after Christmas, or do you know? And it's like, do you know what? If you're at that position, and it's look at it needs to be looked at on an individual basis, and if your circumstances are requiring you to sell, then the time is now. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of what time of year it is, and whether there's a better time of year to sell. Do you know, every time of year has its advantages for selling. You just need to obviously have the right agent to capitalise on them as well. And I think FIFE in itself, FIFE, I mean, even with its rich history and its transport links and great schools and things, it's always been an attractive destination for families and professionals alike. We've seen a lot of that with people coming from the cities, and do you know what I mean? People just looking for that kind of get away from the bustle, but you're still close enough to. I mean, we're in Edinburgh under an hour, but with the increase in available properties and things, the unique selling propositions could sometimes be overshadowed if we don't position our houses, our homes correctly when marketing and things as well.
Absolutely.
And that brings me on to ask you, like, I mean, what are the dangers of overpricing your home in FIFE in your marketing?
It's a massive issue, and it's something that we constantly come against. But I think before we get into the dangers of that, I think it's really important for anyone out there who's considering selling their property. Whenever an agent comes out, has that agent evidence to you what that property is valued at, or have they just come up with a number?
Plucked a figure out there instead of doing
effectively. Because if they have just plucked the figure, to use your words, then actually you could have done that yourself. So you really need to have an agent that can robustly demonstrate to you where their knowledge has come from, and have they got a good relationship locally with the surveyors as well, so that they can really give you some great insight as to the true value of your house. Because actually the pitfalls, as you say, which we'll cover now, it can be quite destroying for you, because it's a big thing, isn't it? It's an emotional thing, selling your house, and there's generally emotion driving the circumstances to get you to that point. So it's very stressful, isn't it? So the last thing you want to do is go at the wrong price. Yeah,
it is. It's a really big mistake, and I think if you've got the wrong agent, that's what will happen. And just before you move on to overpricing and things, the market and FIFE, it's especially, I think we realise this, and if you've got an agent who's kind of really involved in the market and boots on the ground and in the streets and in the properties, it's become so finite that it's actually down to sometimes not even just the street, it's down to the individual property. Do you know, they used to go by postcode and like, let's price and go, everything in this postcode is going to be this price and everything. But we're seeing, and I see it in lettings and things as well. It's like we're right down to not just the street, even just individually. One property at the one end could be this price, and the other property, but it's what the actual individual property is, and it's having that knowledge and understanding to price it correctly. And if you've got a good agent, they'll know how to do that. A good local agent, because we don't want people from the cities trying to value that have never been in FIFE or walked up the streets trying to do valuations. It just does not work.
It doesn't work. It's interesting you say that, actually, because I had that exact situation today and also yesterday. So I did all my groundwork, did all my comparables, looked at all the square metrages of the £1,000 per square metre of the average house that was selling in that street. Then I get there and I'm like, okay, this is a bit different because you've got this whole extensive plot size that is not anticipated. When you see it from the street, it was like 3 more houses at the back of it. So there's a lot of homework to do and understanding of that. Again, today I was in another property, and for them, again, extensive garden. They had a walled garden, beautiful sea views. So, depending on, you could be in one street and be on one side of the street and it'd be one thing, and on the other side of the street it'd be something completely different in regards to the value. So it really is about understanding all of that. It makes a big difference, and really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, we could sit at a desk and do a desktop valuation as such, with a generally okay knowledge of what the price point is going to be, and especially in FIFE, because you get all weird and wonderful and unique properties, and you walk through that door and it could be something absolutely spectacular. Or even that could go the other way, and then that then has a big effect on the valuation. And that's why you really need to have your agent on site doing the valuation as well. To do a desktop over an email or things as just a general, I mean, it's an estimate, and it's never going to be accurate unless you're on site looking around the property and seeing the actual benefits that are available for that individual property.
Yeah, 100%. So the dangers of overpricing your FIFE, what does that mean? Here's where it gets really interesting, I feel. The vast database of property insights have accumulated over the years, of course they have. There's a recurring theme that comes with houses. with the sizes, the plots, etc. But when homeowners price their properties too high, especially in a saturated market, so it can have dire consequences. And we're talking saturated, but if you think even in your area alone, if you've got an increase of 20%, 30%, 40%, then you're competing against an extra.
Yeah, people have got more choice.
Yes. I'm driving around just now, and you're seeing where you used to see one house in the street, maybe sometimes now you're seeing two or three, and then suddenly you've got to compete with that. And Levenmouth is a great example of that, actually. If you think about Levenmouth, if you even go into the Broome area, if you think of all of the Linwood Drives and Woodlands and all around there, and all the houses are quite similar as in structure, size, etc., but they have different views. But that is pretty much for muchness, isn't it? So then suddenly, if you get one coming up in that area, which wasn't happening before, then it's challenging for you, isn't it? So the price point is really vital. How does that have dire consequences? Well, the first thing that it's going to do is give you fewer viewings. So buyers, especially in today's digital age, are more informed than they've ever been before. And I think that's something that we've really come up against and noticed a lot in the last 18 months to 24 months for ourselves. They compare the homes on the portals.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people do that. You get to them and they're like, well, and you ask them, do you have an expectation? Have you, do you know, what would you like to achieve? No, I don't. And then once you go through and they're like, okay, well, this is what I thought, and this is so. They do already have a bit of knowledge of themselves, and it's easy to do a general comparison on the portals and things as well. But like you say, it could be rows and rows of ex-local authority properties that from the outset look exactly the same, but inside they're not. Yeah,
absolutely, 100%. So it does make a difference, but actually what it can do, if buyers are getting a little bit savvy with this. If they see that they think yours is overpriced compared to the others that are there, that are quite similar in their minds, straight away it's a negative. They might not even give it a second look. They might not even come to view it. So all those things that I'm saying earlier on about the fact that you've got all of this at the back, or this huge plot or extensions, if the person doesn't physically get to see it, it's gone for them, isn't it? So I think that's where you really need to make sure that you capture things properly and that you have a really good digital strategy as well. We talk about portals there, but it's not just about the portals. It's having a good digital strategy.
Yeah, and that's the advantage of, like, we lead in with a personal property tour, and it's like really in depth and really picks up on all those additional features and benefits of a property if it's got them, to make it stand out from something different. And that's, I mean, that should be catching your buyers first, and then leads them into the normal listing as such. But yeah, and that's something. I mean, you talk about the dire consequences, and then that ends up, if you've not got that right thing in place, or you've not marketed it properly, and it is overpriced, then you end up longer on the market. And overpriced FIFE homes tend to stay on the market a lot longer, and the longer the home is on the market, the more potential buyers wonder what's wrong with it. There's something wrong with this. It's been on for X amount of weeks, do you know? And then it leads to, obviously, properties sitting too long in the market. And then what happens to them?
They go stale.
They become stale. Yeah, definitely.
They become stale. And the thing is, if a property does become stale as well, a FIFE home in the market too long loses its appeal to people, and that's the thing. It becomes stale. It even reduces it. Even if you reduce the price later, people will still have that negative thought in their head sometimes if you've left it for too long, because they're thinking, what's wrong with it? Okay, they've reduced the price, but there are things wrong with it. And so it's about making sure that you do get that correct starting point. The initial buzz around your listing as well is also lost. So, you know, it makes it really difficult then for the excitement to come into the market. You potentially catch up with everyone else, which again is a negative. Often leading selling at a much further reduced price than perhaps you'd ever intended to at the outset.
Yeah, definitely.
And that can harm you as well. Obviously, you have the initial thing with your estate agent coming out is to get that good value understanding of what your property is, because it helps you make decisions and choices about where you're going to go next, whether you're upsizing or downsizing. If you're downsizing, you'll have other things going on in life, so your numbers all matter, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you say, it's all about those initial days and weeks where you could have a lot of missed opportunities. And if a property remains on the market and unsold, homeowners will miss out on favourable, like, mortgage rates possibly for their next purchase and their dream home, like you say, and that's maybe up for grabs at that time. They might miss out on that because it's obviously sat for so long. So they're all things that are really and it has pretty dire consequences if you end up in that situation, and it could make selling your property such a negative experience when it really shouldn't be. So that's something, yeah, definitely. And then I think on the
you touched on a really good point there, actually, Richard, about the fact that if you're looking to get a mortgage, etc., because again, if a property does look like it's overpriced and has taken time, and then you may get an offer, but standard offers will say if someone needs a mortgage, it's subject to them potentially having an independent valuation done, which they are the sole decider of what is independent and what's not. So if they go and get a valuation done and that valuation comes at a reduced amount, then actually it might actually impact the number that they can offer you for that house, because suddenly their mortgage supplier is saying, well, actually, I'm not going to give you £200,000 for your mortgage now. Now I can only give you 180 because the price of the property is overpriced. What I mean by that is the person will only have a set amount of deposit. So if they suddenly then have to use up the deposit to pay for the actual structure of the house and can't pay over, then you've lost out as the seller, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. That is a good point. And to be in that position would be quite dire, because then you've lost out on your next home and your dream purchase. And that brings us nicely on to, I think, the power of the right pricing for your FIFE home, definitely. And there are many benefits to correctly pricing your FIFE home from the beginning, from the very start. Not only does it attract more potential buyers, but it also increases the likelihood of multiple offers and potentially driving up the final sale price of your property. And that means a quicker sale, reducing your uncertainty and stress that accompanies the selling process.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, though, you know, there's some negative things that we've spoken about in here, and it's really important to ignore the doom mongers.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We talk about this a lot.
Yeah, don't listen to the media, don't listen to social media.
Yeah, it's all just clickbait, as we would say.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that whilst we have seen a reduction in property sales in 2023 compared to 2021, the property market is in decent shape.
Yeah.
It must be remembered that the total UK house price sales year to date to the end of October 2023 are only 94% of the prices from 2017, 18 and 19. So you know, when you compare it like that, you know, it's still a strong position to be in. So whilst it's tough out there for some, and some may be frustrated, it isn't as bad as some newspapers and media outlets are suggesting. Yeah. So again, it can only stress the importance of realistic pricing and making sure that your agent that you're working with is really understanding that and demonstrated it to you to give you that confidence at the outset.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think if, like you said earlier on, Perry, if your agent isn't coming through the door and clearly demonstrating how they've got to the price point that they're putting on the value of your property, then there's something wrong. They need to back that up with evidence. And like you said, you go out to appointments and you've done all your back work, you've looked at the area, you've looked at the street, you've looked at the property itself, the comparable sales, you've looked at the square footage and obviously and how much that is per square metre or whatever you do. Do you know, if they can't demonstrate that to you, then you've maybe not got the right person in your room. So.
And as a seller, you challenge, because you know it's a big decision. It's your biggest asset that you're working with. Challenge whoever is coming out over your doorstep, because it's their role in this process to give you the best guidance that they can give. So definitely challenge. That's what we're there to be done. Yeah. So what should FIFE homeowners do? Yeah, we're talking about that. What should FIFE homeowners do in questions? If you're considering selling your home in FIFE, research the FIFE property market as well yourself. Understand the current market dynamics. See where your property stands. You know, we talked about, you know, doing comparables and looking on the websites. It's really important to look at those portals and get a flavour for what's out there. Does it look like mine? Is it identical? Is it different? Where would I sit within that mix? Look at this, what is for sale and what's sold. So again, when you go onto Rightmove, not everyone may know this, but it's when you go into Rightmove on your apps, if you're using your phone, for instance, there's a little icon that you can click as well that says sold STC. So if you want to see what's actually sold, it's important to click that. Otherwise, you just see what's available. You won't see what's gone. Actually, the things that are sold but haven't yet completed will still be out there for you to get a good idea of what they look like. So important to look at that as well. Research shows that properties in FIFE sell for within 1 to 2% of the final asking price. Yeah. That's if you use standard agents. If you're not using standard agent and someone's got a good media package in regards to advertising, then it will be more than that. Seek professional guidance. engage with an experienced estate agent who knows the FIFE property market. Their advice on pricing can be invaluable. We've talked quite a lot about that, haven't we, in regards to that?
It can really be invaluable, yeah. And I think it's always important as well to be realistic. And remember, the goal is to sell your home in Fife, not to have it linger on the market. So an attractively priced home often leads to a faster sale and probably an overall better outcome as well.
A better experience as well for you. As we mentioned earlier, you don't want a stressful situation and a stressful experience by doing it. It's hard to make a decision to sell if you're finding some as well. Keep the house ready, keeping it tidy. As you know, we do a lot of shows. If you look for any kind of podcast, etc., around decluttering, getting yourself 2 minute viewing ready, say on our YouTube channel. So we'll have a real look at that.
Yeah.
But the landscape, as we've seen, of the property market is ever changing. We're always witnessing that. While the increase in new property sales a challenge, it also offers opportunities for those who navigate wisely and have a good place. And let's not forget that. You know, we did a pre-report for a property Friday. It was in a high price point at 400 plus bracket. So, you know, the buyers are out there. So it's about getting that strategy right to begin with. My message for anyone who's looking to sell a property is don't fall into the trap of pricing your home.
Yeah.
With the right strategy, backed research and professional expertise, certainly it can be made so much easier. And your current scenario will ensure your home finds its ideal buyer. That's what you want when you've made that decision, isn't it? So it's about making sure that you have a robust plan in place.
Yeah, that's definitely the most important thing here. And I think, like we've said, if you are looking to sell your property, make sure you have the right agent. Question that agent. Make sure they're doing the right back work and things to value your property correctly. And they do actually have quite a good knowledge of the market itself. So I mean, you could have an agent there that's, like I say, just plucking prices out or values out the sky, but really you need to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and that's the most important thing. Have the professionals deal with it for you.
It's as well as getting the value and being able to show that to the person, the potential seller. It's also about the strategy of how you're going to sell the property, or what makes you different. How do you get that across? If you've sold 100 houses, I want to know, where did you sell them? What was the house like? How much more of the home report did you get? Can you demonstrate to me that you're the one I should do? So it's not about 100, it's about I get sold it. Did that work for you? And so it's really important to challenge that as well and to demonstrate that when you're working with an agent. Today, we want happy sellers. We want them to prosper in their new properties. We want them to have positive futures. What would be your final ideas for someone in regards to making sure they didn't overprice it? What would be your final words on it?
Yeah, my final words to kind of wrap up today would be obviously, yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, for Fife residents and things, we really want to you want selling and the whole marketing process to be a happy process and not something that you reflect back on negatively and feel like you didn't get achieve what you were supposed to. And that is what we always set out to do, is to have happy sellers and really have a good experience and feel like they got the price point they want. But on the flip side, the buyers also got the property they wanted for the price they wanted, and to marry that up and have that work together is quite a good skill to have. And that is ultimately what our objective is as an agent, and basically helping you manage that whole process of selling and buying and marrying it up together. And I think if you've got a good agent, they will be able to do that. And that's what I think makes the whole process worth investing in a good agent. So
I think my favorite word, and what we try to do is manage your life as it happens, and help you do what you need to do your life. But it's making sure that you have confidence in who you engage. Have they demonstrated to you where values come from? Have they demonstrated why they're different, that they are the right person for you to go with? And have they priced the property right and evidence that? That's going to be the key for you to be able to get your happy ending.
Yeah,
would be how I would say.
Yeah, because ultimately it's not just selling houses.
No, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that was great, Perry. Thanks very much for that.
So if you want to read it, then it's a 5-minute. It's going to be great examples. If you want to delve into the article further, by all means, feel free to do. Like I said, if you have any questions once you watch this, either now or later, feel free to reach out to us. More than happy to help answer the questions that you may have. And until next time, it's Perrie FIFE Property. Richard, thanks for coming on the show.
That's
have a great
Perry,
Wednesday. Take care all.
Thank you. Okay, bye.